Okay, I'm going to do a very short live live interactive session. Interesting, this one is coming live from my village. This one, I don't know that you call it an interactive session inspired by village people. You know, we are only good at blaming village people for everything that is wrong, everything that is anti-society, everything that is negative. But here I am talking to you from my village. So I've chosen to tell you that this interactive session is inspired by village people. You know, a few days ago, our state honorable commissioner for budget and planning and we are on air to disabuse the minds of our people, you know, to shed light on some issues, to make certain clarifications and correct wrong impressions that were created by the opposition led by the PDP in Abia State. They've refused to rest, and the journey is very far. The road is very, very far. We wish them the very best. But that's the beauty of democracy. Engagements is part of it, whether it's constructive or not, it's also part of democracy. So we were able to disabuse the minds of our people and lay the facts bare on the table. And there was no doubt that the sending honest, passionate, sincere, and patriotic Abians who listened to us completely agreed with us. And since after our appearance on that radio interview that were simultaneously aired on 5 radio stations live, those who fabricated the lies to discredit our governor, His Excellency Dr. Otti, to discredit the government, were disappointed because the people saw through their fabrications, their distortions, the lies, the disinformation. So, and they struggled to churn out a few things as a follow-up. They saw a disapproval. Nobody paid attention to those lies. And there were a few things, a few issues I spoke on. For example, during our interactive session, I talked about the lies, about what was allegedly spent on propaganda. They said propaganda, that we spent over 500 million on propaganda during the period under review. That's the Q3 performance. The people who were churning out these falsehood didn't know that what they saw as what was spent was what was spent on Ministry of Information. The Ministry of Information is not Ferdinand Ekoma. Ministry of Information is not the Chief Press Secretary. Ministry of Information is not the Honorable Commissioner for Information. Ministry of Information is Ministry of Information. And I did tell you that when you talk about Ministry of Information, you talk about the staff of the ministry. You talk about staff of a national ambassador. You talk about staff of BCA. You talk about staff of Abia Tourism Board. They are all under the Ministry of Information. And I think there is another agency. You talk about the Abia Council of Arts and Culture. They are all under the Ministry of Information. It was what was spent, the payment of salaries, including arrears. Those were what formed the amount you saw. They said spent 500 something million on propaganda. Of course, there's no room for propaganda in this government. We say it the way it is. We lay the facts bare. We make sure that you dwell on facts at all times. And let me once read out the figures, the numbers contained, and agencies and numbers contained under the Ministry of Information. We have Ministry of Information staff 378. I credited this to BCA before. 378. That's what we have in the Ministry of Information. 378 staff. BCA has 307. 307 BCA. Abia Council of Arts and Culture has 68 workers. Abia Newspapers has 37 workers. tourism board has 12. And mind you, that was after some transfers and all the rest of them have been done. And you have a total number of 802. 802. These are the names you've seen here are civil servants. 802 under the Ministry of Information. There could be more numbers. But because the individuals that were churning out these lies, they are made up of two categories: ignorant mischief makers and intentional distortionists. Because there are wannabe activists who do live video every day without being armed with facts, with little or no knowledge of what is on ground. That is the challenge. I did tell you the situation at the government house, where you have close to 900 workers, majority of who were doing nothing before we came on board. And somebody has been turning out all kinds of lies. We told you the agencies, when they said what was spent on the governor's office, out of ignorance. We told you agencies that are under the governor's office, people who are being paid. They think that governor's office is Governor Otti, what he does in his office. I mean, his office as a structure, just as a building, his movement. No. You have, just like we mentioned last time, agencies, that are under the office of the governor. Like you have the Abia State Traffic Agency, under the office of the governor. You have the fire service and other agencies, multitude of agencies under the office of the governor. Unfortunately, and very unfortunately, some of them were not being paid during the PDP administration. They weren't being paid. All of them are being paid as we speak. I'm sure some of you who followed what happened in Omaha 2 days ago, the Abia Traffic Agency, you saw what was done. You saw the number of motorcycles that were bought for them. You saw how the place has been, equipped, how they have been trained, the trainings have been going on, how they have been mobilized, how they are being paid, and what is happening in their activity. They've prepared for the U-tide, for the Mbamut and all the rest of them. That's under the office of the government. This is what some individuals who, instead of asking questions on issues they do not have knowledge or information about, they just go out to fabricate all kinds of lies. But that's okay. That's part of it. That's part of democracy. That's part of maybe opposition. But we are under obligation to continue to disabuse the minds of our people. We are under obligation to continue to educate our people, to continue to put records straight, to continue to inform our people, to continue to deliver for the good of our people. That's what I'm doing. There was another subject matter that, of course, I did talk about it during the last interview. They talked about what was spent on capital project. They said we spent 5.something billion on capital project. They were comparing us with Ebony and said Ebony spent about 10.something billion. In their calculation, and that is infantile thinking, infantile calculation, with all that's been happening in Abia since Governor Otti assumed office,